So for participation this week, we're going to walk through this tutorial by Vagella. I've been kind of struggling with this chapter in that we're going to look at a traditional way to handle databases. And if we go to this database Vagella framework, it gives a good introduction to SQLite here. Um, but um, But often with Java, we use an object to relational database mapping software. A common one out there is called Hibernate. Unfortunately, works well with servers, but not on Android. It's too heavyweight for Android. And we haven't had a good alternative for Android, and we've been doing it all from scratch a lot of ways. And we're going to continue doing that in this participation activity. But Google has introduced a new object mapping library called Room, and you'll have an option to use this in this week's assignment if you want. So we're actually going to jump out of that all the way down here to tutorial 6 and go through this part of the database where we're just going to create a simple app that lets you add comments and delete comments here. So let's just walk through this tutorial. So again, first we review section 1 on SQL, and then you're going to skip to section 6, and we're going to just go through and do that. We're going to start with a new project in Android. So I'm just going to set up a new project with a basic starter app. So I'm going to start with the app, new app. I'm going to leave the domain here. I just have to watch when I cut and paste code that I don't grab the uh, project the package name from the other thing. So leave this all the same. I'm going to start with an empty activity and finish this up. So the first thing we're going to do is create this MySQL helper class. And so that's the first class Vagella provides here. So let's just do that. We're going to do a new class with the name set up. Now I'm just going to take the code from the Vagella tutorial and paste it in here. I'm going to watch the package name again. So I already have a package name here that's a little different. So I'm just going to avoid the package name at the top here and then just grab everything else here and paste it in here. So again, to see if you understand this, I want you to add some Java doc comments to each the class and the methods, and then comments for some of the constants here, and then add a comment that shows what's the actual SQL create command that we'll be using to create table. So again, go in here and add some comments in here. So again, just put in some comments in here. Again, I just wanted you to make sure they don't have to be official. You don't have to do all this stuff for Java docs necessarily, just a basic description of what some of these methods do and what some of the classes do. And in particular, these constants here that divide, so like this comment is the name of the table. This comment is the name of the column or the field for the comments. This is the primary key, and so try to just see if you can comment out what these areas are. Here we're doing a create table command, and it's often hard to read because again we're creating the SQL command from the different parts here. So again, I just maybe you'd write out what the standard SQL command is. So we just say create table and the name of the comments, and then parentheses, and then comment ID string and comments, comma, and then we end the bracket there. And then it's easier to kind of see that and map that out here and see we're saying create table and then table comments maps to the name of the table here. Okay, so once you've commented this, we're just going to go through the rest of the tutorial. We're going to create a comment class and a comment data source class. Both of those are listed here. So here's our comment class. So we'll just go through and create those. So you're copy and pasting these. If you use the same package name as in the tutorial, you can paste the whole thing. Otherwise, just make sure when you select these, you don't grab the package name at the top and keep your package name there. So we're going to create these the comment class and the comment data source. And again, just put in some SQL, some comments here to make sure you kind of go over the code a little bit and see how things are working. So particularly like the comment data source, what does the delete comment method do? What does the get all comments method do? What's the cursor to comments? So just some quick comments, see if you can understand what this code is doing. And then we're going to work with our layout and our main activity here. So here's our layout field. So I'm going to just grab that, go into here, work with activity here, and paste that in here. Similarly, for the main activity class, we already have that here, and so I'm going to do that. So they called their main activity class test database activity class. So watch that name. I'm going to actually skip over. So I'm going to copy this, not the package name, but everything else. And we'll talk a little bit about changing some things here. Now this class doesn't extend a standard activity, but it extends a list activity, which is a little different kind of activity. I'm going to put this in after here so we can kind of see some of the differences here. So this main activity extends compatibility activity instead of this, and we have different imports. So I'm going to leave my package name here. I'm going to just make sure for main activity I replace their test activity with that, and then leave the imports. I'm going to delete this class and these imports and see if we can get everything compiling. One problem they have in their code is for some reason let's go back, their main activity, their layout, they're calling main, even though it's called activity.main. So if you get an error there, you should just do it activity_main. It should be the same name as this layout class. And I think I have that commented in here. Watch the main activity and make sure you put it there. So if you got everything in here correctly, you should be building. You should build this and run this without any errors. It should run this app. It should add random comments as you go. And then you can also delete the comments. So that's how the app should be running. So I hope you can do this. I spend about an hour to an hour and a half on this participation activity. Again, if you have some problems with errors and stuff with this, you can just get this part running. If you have time, if this went relatively smoothly, you went through without any errors, and it only took you half an hour to put in some of these comments or whatever, and you're understanding things, here's a couple things you can do to extend your learning. So change the first button from add new to add random comment here. So when you run this, the add new button, say it really adds a random thing. There are some errors in this code. So in the comments data source, the cursor to comments thing. So if we look at the comments data course, the last thing is this cursor to data source, and it's hard coding some of the column numbers here rather than using things that it should. So like when we setting the ID comments.setID cursor.getLong, this is the saying that the cursor ID is always going to be the zeroth, the initial column ID, but that might not always be true, and we actually have the column ID defined here, and so we should be actually using that in the code. And so again, here's an example of, let me just copy and paste that in there. So we should be using this column ID here from the MySQL helper class, and then from that we should get the column index from our cursor. So rather than doing it this way with hard-coded values, we should be really using the values here. So that's one thing you can change, and you should change that also for the comment one. So there are some other suggestions of optimizations you can try to make to this code. So again, if you have time, feel free to try to go through some of these. So for the assignment in this unit, you have an option here. You can continue with this example and we do some modifications to the traditional SQL class. We're going to add a ratings field to the database. It'll get you adding a new field to different things, including modifying the comment database or object, changing to the data source, and then to your main activity class here. Another option is to look at this object relational model. So I mentioned originally Android did not have a clear object relational mapping library to use. It's similar to what Hibernate is used in other areas, but now there's this thing called Room. So I want you can look through 2 that talks a little bit about it, and then go through exercise 3, or at least the first part, the 3.1, create a project, and 3.2, create the classes and use them. We're not gonna, you don't have to go through the next part, which is the optional adding the system, another table to this, or the performance part here. You don't have to do that, just 3.1 and 3.2. So if you want to play, and certainly I think if you've been playing with Hibernate before or other libraries like this might be a useful thing for you to do. So this is another alternative. So you have to do either option 1 or option 2 here.